George, the jumper is good. It's a three. Plenty of time left. 6:45 remaining. George feeling it. Paul George puts it in from long range. Grant ahead for George. Look out. Paul George. The layup goes. Paul George soaring high for the Thunder. George gets around Dinwiddie. Corkscrews in for the bucket. The lead is down to 6. George crosses. George flips it in. Westbrook, 1-point game. Westbrook tosses. George, pump fake, 3 on the way. Yes! Paul George nails it. Paul George has come up huge for OKC.
You know, there were no cupcakes served at the party this offseason when Russell Westbrook held it to announce Paul George was staying. It was all love then. It's still all love now. PG-13 coming off OKC high 47 points, including 25 in the fourth quarter. And a clutch 3 to put the cherry on top. Thunder visit the Bulls, who are trending downwards, clearly in the opposite direction. And they just relieved their coach, and they are moving in the opposite direction. But right now, we'll go to Billy Donovan, the head coach of the OKC Thunder.
Well, I think there's, a lot of things to take from the game. One is I give our guys a lot of credit. There's so many possessions in an NBA game. They shot the ball well. We didn't defend the three-point line as well as we have during the course of the season. But I think our guys fight in their will and their resiliency to keep battling and have a belief that they can get back in the game and give themselves a chance. And that fourth quarter, certainly with the performance that Paul put on and the way he played, but really our whole entire team, just the energy, the positivity on the bench about believing they could get back in the game. You also take out of it, too, where, Paul's shot doesn't go in or they make a game-winning shot, with 3 seconds to go. It doesn't look like a great comeback. It looks like all the things that we did wrong. So I think you got to find, the positives in what was really, really good about the game. And then you got to really make the corrections that are necessary and learn from the things that we didn't do well.
You out-rebounded them 24-8 down the stretch and held them to 29% field goal shooting. So it wasn't just that Paul went crazy and got hot. You had to do a lot of things to sort of dig in and make that happen. What stands out to you from that standpoint that maybe you're focusing on tonight against Chicago?
Well, I thought there was 3 things that were important going in the game, would be important every game. And, tonight's no exception. I think the first thing playing against, Brooklyn was we needed to win the turnover battle. I think anytime you're going on the road, you got to win the turnover battle. We had 10 turnovers in the first half. I think the other thing we talked about was we needed to win the free throw line battle. It was 18-5. They took 18 free throws to our 5 in the first half. And then the other part was, the defending of the three-point line. They really got going there. But even the rebounding part we talked about, they had 9 offensive rebounds. Besides Paul's incredible performance, we did those things at a high level in the second half. We kept them off the backboard. We got to the free throw line. We flipped the free throw line, and we took much, much better care of the basketball.
This is something you really can't control, but isn't it?
Huge day for me and my family, but it's really not about that. It's about a young team that has to get better, and has a big game on Friday night in the United Center. So we got to do the basics better, and we got to compete, and we'll see what we do when the lights come on.
Jim, same starters as Tuesday night?
Yes.
For those of us who weren't at shoot-around and such, can you update us on Portis and Dunn's injury statuses for tomorrow?
They had a good day, and that's about all I got for you.
There's a chance they could play tomorrow?
They had a good day. I don't know yet, so I'm not trying to be vague. I don't know yet. So
Jim,
we kind of wait till they respond in the morning. It's one of those type of things. They do their check-in, and then we go from there. So they got through the day and did well, and our shoot-arounds are they're basically live shoot-arounds, so they did well.
Jim, did the back-to-back factor in just kind of making sure to be overcautious with them? I mean, you don't want to throw 2 knee guys out there with back-to-backs.
Yes, Joe. Yeah, absolutely. We've kind of been attached at the hip with our medical people, and just talk about it every day. We discuss it, and we'll see where it goes. So, thank you. Yeah.
Jim, when you're on the road, you said you play a certain style when you're on the road, a little more slower pace. Yeah. So what do you do when you're at home?
What I want is a team that can. The good teams I've been a part of, can play fast. They can play slow, but they always play smart. So I don't know if we're going to be a team that plays at an unbelievable pace or doesn't, but what I hope we can do is play winning basketball. On the road, I think you have to have a different mentality. I mean, I was on a 60-win Spurs team, and we were on the road. We played a different mentality. I was with the Rockets with Rudy Tomjanovich, and when we were on the road, we played with a different kind of mentality than we played at home. So I believe in that. I've been a part of it. I've seen it work. I don't know if our team even understands any of that. So this is a new ground for them. But, you know, I have too much respect for the league to think that you can just, you know, not prepare for those type of things and be ready for that. So, yeah, so we'll see. We'll see.
Jim Boylen right now the head coach of the Chicago Bulls, starting with the Thunder, who the Bulls play tonight. Started the season 0-4. Now they've won 16 of their last 19. It appears that everything is hitting on full cylinders. The last game, you know, you have Paul George going off in the fourth quarter, Russ making all the right plays. When you watch the Oklahoma City Thunder right now, what do you see from that team?
Well, two things stick out. They're defending, and they have the capability to defend. And then the second for me is they have a bench now, a reliable bench when you have Dennis Schroeder where he's playing. And then the third thing is, and it's a little thing is, but Dennis Schroeder is making practice better for Russell Westbrook. And people say, what do you mean? Over the years, I've looked at all the backup point guards, and nothing against Raymond Felton and DJ Augustine, but you're better because of practice. You win games because of practice. And I know Dennis Schroeder, the type of attitude that he has, the way he approaches the game, and also it has to be a little bit on his shoulder that he's not starting anymore. He's not a starting point guard. So I'm sure there's some competitive practices with Dennis Schroeder, and I just love the way Jeremy Grant has he developed his jump shot and his all-around game as an offensive guy.
Definitely made Carmelo Anthony expendable while he ends up going to another team. But Griff, going to the Chicago Bulls, the team still has single-digit wins. They relieved their coach earlier in the week. Number one, why do they do that now? And your thoughts just on the Bulls in general and what they're doing this season?
It's fascinating to me, actually, and I think holding Fred Hoiberg responsible for this group, particularly with all the injuries they had, on the one hand is a really unfair thing. On the other hand, I understand why the front office wanted to do it when they wanted to do it. The schedule's getting a little more difficult, and at the same time, you're getting a little more healthy. So you're going to start to sprinkle in some guys that you've been without, and you're going to, and particularly as Markkanen finds his stride, right, you want to know that everyone's being held accountable as you go through this period of time. And if they didn't have a level of comfort with Fred, and whether they should or shouldn't have, we can get into that later. If they didn't have a level of comfort with Fred, they needed to do this. It's incumbent upon the organization to do what they think is best. And in the case of Jim Boylen, you're getting a guy who I have an incredible soft spot for. He was in the video room, won 2 championships with Akeem Olajuwon, actually worked with Akeem on the floor as a development coach. This is a guy who has truly paid his dues, a collegiate head coach at a very high level, and he is a grinder. He's an old school sort of throwback. He's a tough guy. And it reminds me a little bit of Scott Skiles in many ways. He's not going to let very many things slide. And I was actually at one of their practices earlier this year and saw him in full splendor. Jimmy B can coach a little bit, but he's not going to be somebody who takes it easy on guys.
Not at all. And I had him at Michigan State. He's, like you said, he's a hard hat grinding guy, and he will challenge you. It won't be anything slipping. So I'm looking forward to him getting his opportunity. Obviously, don't like his expensive Fred Hoiberg, but you know, Jimmy is a guy that I think is going to hold guys accountable. You will see guys at least playing the right way.
That might be what the Bulls need right now. Of course, we know that the roster is full of young talent, but full of guys like Markkanen. We haven't seen Bobby Portis in a while. Chris Dunn's only played 1 game so far this season. Like you said, Griff, speaking to your point, these guys are getting healthy. It's time to bring them back. Maybe it's time for a new voice. It's going to be interesting to see. Well, how does this work right here? He's yet to be an all-star, Mike Conley Jr., but that might change this season. He's averaging career highs in points and assists. And earlier, he joined Jared Greenberg on 10 Before Tip.
For whatever reason, the all-star thing has just never happened. And for once, I just thought, hey, you know, maybe I should let people know that, you know, it is on my agenda. It is something that I really want.
The Grizzlies, this year versus last year. Last year, of course, we know they didn't play so well. This year, they're playing a lot better. The numbers say it all right there on the screen. Field goal percentage is better, playing better defense, getting back to that grit and grind mentality that's worked for them so many years. So, Smitty, start with you. You've known Jaren Jackson. I want to start talking about the rookie because you're very familiar with him. You've known him since he was yay high. We'll talk about Conley in a second, but just the rookie's impact so far this season, what he's been able to bring to this team.
Well, first of all, he's very talented and he's very young. But I think also you also tie that into the veterans in Marc Gasol and Mike Conley. They've had a big hand in this guy being successful. And the reason why I say that, you're only successful as your leaders. That's ownership, management, coaching, and then you got to have that leader on the court. And that's what Mike Conley and Marc Gasol is. And I think when you have leadership on the court, and for a young guy, this is the best possible scenario, I thought, for Jaren Jackson Jr. There was, he was thinking, where is he going, like all young guys. When he landed in Memphis, I said, this is going to be fantastic. One, you have Marc Gasol to learn from, also Marc Gasol to play with. He's a willing passer. And then you have Mike Conley, a quiet leader that understands what goes on off the court and on the court. And that's the reason why they're having success. Will there be a playoff team? We shall see. But they are playing above expectations. And J.B. Bickerstaff, he was one of my coaches when he was coaching with his dad in Charlotte. He's a throwback, old school type of guy, and I love. He doesn't have the shooting of everybody else, so I'm going to go back and play traditional two bigs and see what everybody can play against those guys.
You also have Joakim Noah, who has recently joined the team. You talk about the mixture of the youth and the vets. Joakim, I don't know how much he has left in the tank, but it'll be interesting to see going down the stretch. But Griff, Gasol's been steady. Numbers seem to be consistent. Conley, does he truly have a chance to be an all-star this season in the thick Western Conference?
Well, if you embrace somebody who is the reason a team wins basketball games, yes, he should be very much in consideration for All-Star. I think what happened during the time that Mike has been injured these past couple seasons and that Gasol was out last year, the game has become so much faster and so much sexier offensively because you got Steph Curry making 38-foot threes off the dribble doing the shimmy shake. You got Russell Westbrook averaging a triple-double. There's real prolific numbers out there now. And Mike Conley historically was not one of those guys. But what he did was he won his matchup on the defensive side of the ball every night. He ran your team. He put you in the most efficient situation, and he was a great leader. Well, those things may not be sexy in terms of checking all the boxes and prolific. Winning games is what you want your point guard to do, and he's like a throwback that way. He's very much an old school guy, and I love the fact that you said earlier they're getting back to grit and grind. The other thing that they did, they went all in on grit and grind, and they stayed there.
Yep.
So by bringing in Garrett Temple, he's a perfect fit with what they do. And Garrett and Jaren Jackson can be some of that length and defensive presence that this team didn't have last year as well. So all of this is coming together really, really well. And obviously, you mentioned it, the job J.B. Bickerstaff is doing is tremendous. But you have to give their front office a lot of credit as well because they sprinkled in the right veteran piece.
So you have a contrast of style when you have the Pelicans who are going against the Grizzlies. So we know the Pelicans can put up plenty of points. I'm stumbling my words. Let me get myself together. But they've been great at home.
Yes.
But then they go on the road. They don't play so well. But they're playing at home. We'll discuss that. 10-3 so far. We know the Brow's going to put up his numbers. Julius Randle's been remarkable this season. A great pickup. Mirotic won't play. But just looking at the two contrasting styles, is this a situation to where you see this is going to be a game that favors the Pelicans tonight playing the Grizzlies?
Well, for me, just early in the season, obviously Anthony Davis has been in and out of the lineup. Their defense, as the Pelicans, hasn't traveled on the road. And it's been great at home, but it hasn't traveled on the road. So you look at it there right there, and I think for Anthony Davis, this has to be a sidekick because when you start talking about JaMychal Green, Jaren Jackson Jr., Marc Gasol, and Noah, they're going to try to beat up that front line of the Pelicans. And this is where I think Drew Holiday is going to have to win that matchup against Mike Conley, which is going to be a tough one. But I think also this is where Anthony Davis and Julius Randle, without Mirotic, is going to have to really put their hard hat on.
This is literally styles make a fight. Memphis wants to play literally 8 possessions slower than New Orleans plays. New Orleans is the third fastest team. Memphis is absolutely the slowest paced team in the league. And so when you see this kind of conflict of styles, you always kind of wonder who's going to win out. And you tend to end up erring on the side of grit and toughness. And New Orleans has got to find a way to defend when Julius Randle's on the court. They have really struggled to do that to this point. And that's really going to be the next step in their evolution.
Evolution is what we continue to do right here, and I made a mistake right now. So Mirotic is actually going to play tonight. He's missed the last 2 games, but he will be coming off the bench.
Okay.
So that
will help.
That will help because you talked about
that
the
is
front
huge.
court depth that the Grizzlies had. They're definitely going to need all that they can get.
Well, and I think for Anthony Davis, the more space you can give him, and I love Julius Randle, he just doesn't get a lot of space with Julius. So when you have a combination of Anthony Davis and Mirotic, then that whole paint is Anthony Davis, and that'll give somebody who's guarding him a tough matchup when you have that much space.
Plenty of tough matchups tonight. Let's take you to the screen right now.